So, hello, dads. And it's been a while since I recorded something here. But having met Ron Platt recently, who I'm going to introduce in a second, I really, really wanted to bring him in front of this audience and let him tell you about what he's doing because it's amazing. So, if you're new to this podcast and you haven't seen previous episodes, I have introduced you to a number of very, very important people in the field of post-divorce parenting and parental alienation. You met Enrique Gutierrez, who is the founder of findmyparent.org. Ron, you should actually know this guy. Findmyparent.org is a platform that helps people, well, it allows people to register online. And then it allows kids to register online who have completely lost track of their parent. This happens a lot in like international abduction cases when the kids become teenagers or young adults and they're looking for a parent that they've completely lost track of. It happens in like war and social unrest situations where kids get sent out of the country for their, like Ukraine. I know that they're working actually together with the government in Ukraine to help families reunite who have just lost track of what happened to their kids or where the kids have lost track of where their parents are. So that's a very cool thing. They do a lot more than that too, by the way. But anyway, look them up. We introduce you to Ashish Joshi, who is a lawyer in the United States who has written a phenomenal book called Litigating Parental Alienation. He is the go-to expert teaching lawyers um, how to be successful in the courtroom around issues of parental alienation, and he lectures all over the world. You met Anthony Cancel from Pro Say Dad, who has an enormous group on Facebook. It must be over 20 or 25,000 guys at this point, uh, teaching divorced dads and supporting them in self-representing in court, and they are being extremely successful. So today, I'm so happy to introduce Ronald Platt. Let me quickly just pull up a bio here so that I don't say the wrong things. Ron is actually a serial entrepreneur with over 35 years of experience across insurance, real estate, and social advocacy, which you're going to see in a minute. He is putting all of those things to use here. Ron has built a career defined by innovation and impact, but it's his personal experience, both as a foster parent and an advocacy for families in crisis, that shaped his true mission to reform the systems that fail single parent and divorce households. Hallelujah. This passion led to the creation of NASDF, the National Association for Single and Divorced Families, a first of its kind membership organization offering an umbrella of products, services, support, and resources to support families nationwide. He's also responsible for creating and launching the only divorce insurance product on the market called Support Insured, which guarantees the continuation of child support and alimony payments should the payer die, become disabled, involuntarily unemployed, or declares a business bankruptcy. This is a game changer for the divorce community. Yes, it is. Ron, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be on your show.
Um, I want to know about your foster parent story.
Yeah. So I came out of a very toxic relationship. I know, not like the rest of us haven't been in one of those before. And I was kind of restarting my life. I always had a passion for working with kids. I visualized myself being a parent at some point in my life. And prior to become a foster parent, I was a youth group advisor for 5 years to kids between the ages of 13 to 17 through a Jewish youth organization that I was part of when I was growing up. And it's interesting to see those kids, how they grow up and where they're at now and how we're still connected and everything else. So I went to California to visit a friend and I got off the plane and he said, "So our plans have changed. I'm getting my foster son today and can you come with me on this journey?" And I thought, okay, some things are just meant to be. So
Wow.
I watched him go through it. I saw what this child was like, and I watched his relationship with him and just thought I could do this. So I came back
Wow.
to Miami at the time, went to a networking event, and a lady stepped up and said, I'm looking for LGBTQT single and coupled individuals to take in LGBTQT foster kids. And I looked up at God and I went, really? Like, like, okay, I guess this is meant to be. So I was part of the first group in Miami that was taking in these LGBTQT children, and it was absolutely fascinating. And the people that were in my group were predominant movers and shakers in my community that also wanted to participate in this. So here I am, a single man, restarting my life, and I got my license. And the woman's name is Amy, handed me my license and said, "Here's your license. There's your kid." And I said, "Whoa, let me get to know this kid a little bit before I bring this child into my life." And she said, "Great, you've got 3 days. He's homeless. Decide quickly." So
Oh
that's
my
how the
God.
process started, other than the training that we had gone through, which, the training kind of gives you a very base level in which to understand these children better, but the rest just comes from having the child. And 3 days later, after he and I had hung out together and everything else, I brought him into my house, and he's now my son. So,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Hey, I have goosebumps, man. Beautiful
It was
story.
very, he was 13 at the time. He was taller than me. In fact, he found a picture of he and I, and he's about this much taller than me. And he looked much older. And, I was so naive in what to expect. And it was interesting because I had my friends sitting around our dining room table one time, and they were telling me everything I was doing wrong that while I was trying to raise him. And I looked around the table and said, "How many people here are foster kids?" And nobody raised their hands. I said, "How many people here have children?" And nobody raised their hand. I said, if I want any parenting advice, because my background and how I was brought up and how my friends were brought up has nothing to do with the way, even if we grew up in abusive households or, you know, whatever type of household we grew up, these kids are totally different, and they've had a totally different experience. So if I wanted advice on how to raise a kid, I'll go to my sister, who's got two beautiful boys that she's raising, and they all kind of understood that. So it was kind of, I was being very naive, but I had to learn quickly. And because of my experiences through my family's dealing with different addictions, not my personal family, but my uncles and stuff, or living with somebody with an addiction that was in my previous relationship, I wasn't completely naive. I did know how to handle some of these things. And he kept thinking that he could trick me or that I was stupid or and I quickly proved that that wasn't the situation. So there were many even to this day, and he's 37 years old. There are still some challenges with his addictions and some of his past experiences that he's not really wanting to deal with. That I kind of hammer him to get in front of a therapist and work it through.
Oh, but what a beautiful story. I'm really so happy to hear that one. Somebody else you should know, who I've not interviewed, but who I followed for a long time is Josh Shipp. Do you know him?
No, I do not. I'm making note.
Called The Adult's Guide to Teenage Humans. The Adult Guide to Raising Teenage Humans. I think that's the name of the book. And he was a foster child. He, the
Mhm.
author, was a foster child who made it his business to get kicked out of every home. He had like a little book where he was keeping score of how many days it would take him to get kicked out. That was
Yeah.
like his mission. It was like all that he had control of in his life
Well,
was
with my
how to get
with my
kicked
son,
out.
he kept well, of course, because he came out at a younger age at 9 years old, he was abused by either the foster kids or the foster parents.
Yeah.
And then he was placed with an LGBTQT gentleman who said, "Oh, I'm gonna make this is gonna be your permanent house." And then I can't remember what the story was, but something happened where he had to give my son back. So I come into the picture and I'm like, "No, this is gonna be your permanent house." He's like, "Yeah, I've heard that one before."
Yeah.
So there,
Yeah.
it was interesting because at one point he got arrested for doing something very stupid, and I picked him up from the jail, and he got in the car, and I was very quiet, and I laced into him. I was so pissed. I'm slamming my hand against the steering wheel, and I'm yelling at him like, "Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep testing me? Blah 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 blah." And he told me many years later that he watched me as I was so because I'm not one to get. You have to do a lot to get me really pissed off.
Yeah.
And here I was screaming and I was banging against the steering. He said it was at that point that I knew you were completely in. And he said,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. That's beautiful. And in Josh's story,
Yeah,
uh, by contrast, it was it was a different he pushed and pushed and pushed on these
yeah,
people. This couple who just the dad was just like a immovable stone. And he was
right.
like, yeah, no, like, no, we're not giving up on you. And finally he did something stupid and got arrested and was in jail overnight and
Mm,
called home to the foster dad who said, yeah, I'll come in the morning.
yeah, yeah,
I'll come in the morning.
yeah,
And it was like, again, it was just a kind of pushing to the maximum of like, what do I have to see? And that was a similar kind of thing of just somebody cares enough about me to put
yeah,
some boundaries around me
yeah.
and rein me in. And that's really beautiful. And I loved what you said because it's so, so true of like my stepmom audience will probably be watching this interview as well. And this idea of getting parenting advice from people who have biological children,
Right,
who think that this is in some way related to raising a stepchild, or in
right.
your case, a foster child. There is nothing besides like eating and sleeping and having clothes on and a roof over your head. There is nothing that's the same about raising a stepchild. And it's so difficult to be out. Um,
Each they each has its own challenges. You know,
yeah,
raising a
of
stepchild
course.
can be very challenging, and things that normally go on in a normal household don't go on as a stepchild. Same thing with a foster parent. I remember when I brought him home and he said, "Can I open up the refrigerator?" And I'm like, "Why can't you?" Yeah, here's how you do it. He's like, "Well, most of the refrigerators I come to have a lock on them," and I'm like, I opened it up. I said, "You see all that food? That's all yours. Just let me know if you need something more. We can go grocery shopping." I didn't have a bedroom set for him uh, when he appeared. I said, "Let's go shop for a bedroom set," and that was something that just. And we're not going to have you living out of a paper bag or plastic bags for your clothes. Let's go get you suitcase, a couple of suitcases. And the more that we did that, the more he felt like this is something permanent.
Wow.
And the other part of the story, and I do have to share, at one point, I made some bad choices in my life. I got back together with my ex, and he got very ill. And during the process of him going through radiation and chemo, my son came home one day and said, "I'm going to quit. I quit school. I quit my job. I'm going to sit home, smoke weed, and hang out with my friends all day." And then I go into the other room, and I've got my ex in a curled up position in pain, and I'm trying to tend to him. And oh, by the way, I'd bought a house that was under renovation so that we could move into a bigger house. And I reached out to Amy, who I had mentioned was running the program, and said, I need a break. And she had always said, if there's a point you need a break, let us know. We will, take the kid for a couple of days. And I said, I'm calling in my favor. I need a break. So she, she moved him into his house temporarily, and she was tougher than I was. He walked in the door, said, "You're going to get drug tested every week. You can't do this. You can't do that." Bah, 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 bah. He thought, and here's this woman who's like 5 foot tall, who was coming across even stronger than I was. And what happened was we began to co-parent.
Oh,
It's
wow.
He ended up staying longer than I thought because the house was taking longer to construct. And he ended up spending 3 or 4 months with her and then coming back with me, but then also going back to her. And there was we realized, Amy and I, shortly after, that we are co-parenting and we need to talk to each other and come up with a plan. And she was good with him being, even though she had not expected to be a parent or a foster parent, uh, it suddenly worked. And to this day, the dynamic is such that she adopted him as his mother, and I adopted him as his father. And he went back and changed his name to put both our names together. Her last name is
Oh,
Rolnick
wow.
and mine is Platt. So his last name is Platnick. He created a new last name for him when the adoption occurred. So, and to this day, it's a family situation. He'll talk to her about certain things he won't talk to me about. And then he'll call up and I'll give a different perspective. She's very tough love. I'm more spiritual. I'm on the more spiritual side. And it works. It just works.
Uh, what a great
Yeah.
story. I just love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
So let's move. I want to move to what for me is the very juicy part of what you do, which is the insurance, because
Yes.
that's what really caught my eye. Like, in fact, it is the only one. It's not just that I had never heard of it, but where did you come to this idea? How did you get there?
So when I was working with my dad in the insurance business, we were doing product development. So people came to us with really niche products that they needed to insure, like hole-in-one insurance, Keno games in Vegas. I'm going to date myself, but I got a call from Asia from somebody that wanted to put together a cell phone warranty. And they're just things that normal insurance companies didn't underwrite. And we were underwriters. We were brokers for Lloyd's of London. So we were able to get a lot of things done through a company called Lloyd's of London. And I'm sitting with my dad. My dad was an idea man. I was the implementer. He came up with these crazy ideas, and I would figure out if we could do it and then come up with a system and make it work. So he said, I always wanted to come up with an insurance product that would guarantee child support and alimony if the payer dies, becomes disabled, involuntarily unemployed, or loses their or has to declare business bankruptcy because they're an entrepreneur and they have to close the business. And I said, that's brilliant. I said, well, we have an association. Why don't we convert it and do what AARP does for people who are 55 and older, but we'll do it for people that are getting a divorce or have a single family household and provide products, services, support, and resources. And he goes, that's brilliant. So we both ran back to our computers, and he realized that nobody was underwriting the product. And I realized that there's no single entity that incorporates everything that people need when they're getting a divorce. In fact, if you Google divorce, you get 5 pages of attorneys and mediators before you get to divorce coaches, relationship coaches, or services that people need. It's just not there. So the need was huge. There's 26 million people across the country that are divorced, and about 2.4 million getting divorced every year, and nobody's doing anything.
Yep.
So he tried for 30 years, God bless him, to place the insurance product. He went to companies that were doing similar products, and they all said no, 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 no. And I joked that on his deathbed, I was listening. He's like, "Don't forget to call," and I'm shaking him, "Don't die." Uh, but we kind of had shelved it for because he wanted to wait to get the insurance product together before we launched the association. And I went to a real estate conference, and I come across this guy. We're talking about investments. He says, well, I want 4 levels of residual income. And I said, well, how about one and you don't need the other three? And he said, well, what do you got? So I start telling him about the association. And he pursued me when I got back, and I had to take out the business plan, update it. My real estate assistant at the time glanced at it, said, can I take it home and look at it? She came back and said, this is $1 billion business. I said, no, I know. And she goes, I mean, there's so many different things we could do with this in so many different directions. And I love the fact that your advocacy is geared towards foster care reform and giving children a voice. Like, what do we do with it? So I spent about 3 months with the investors going back and forth, and they came back to me and said, we're going to pass. If it's so good, why hasn't somebody else done it? And I said, well, we're tailored just like AARP. And if they've got 36 million members and 2 billion in revenue, why hasn't somebody competed with them? And he goes, yeah, I know you've said that, but we're going to pass. So I'm pissed, and I'm driving home from work, and this thought came to me, which was, I either have to put up or shut up. So I'm going to either have to mortgage the house and start the business, or I just can't get people to invest in an idea. So I came home, sat down with my risk adverse husband, and said, this is my passion. I've got to do this. I've been talking about it for since we've been together. Let's mortgage the house. Here's a worst case, best case. Worst case scenario, our mortgage is $1,000 more than what it is now. Best case scenario, we create $1 billion business and give a majority of that back to helping change this world. And he said, that's a pretty good scenario. Let's do it.
Wow. Wow.
We did. I ended up partnering with my assistant, who's now my co-founder. We hired a PR company who put the colors together, the names, and all the stuff that they do. And now you have the National Association for Single and Divorced Families. Interestingly, shortly after we launched, I got a call from a friend of mine that I've known for about 20 years, who's been part of this journey with me on starting this association. And he said, did you ever place the insurance product? And I said, no. And he says, I have somebody I want you to talk to. And it was a 70-year-old underwriter who I absolutely love these older underwriters because they can think outside the box, which the majority of the people don't do these days. And he said, tell me what you got. I have an insurance company. We've only got a couple of products in there. We're looking to diversify. What do you have? So I told him, sent him the actuarial report, sent him the policies, everything else. He came back and said, we're going to do this.
Wow.
And I looked up at my dad and went, oh my God, I think I just did this. I think I did it, Dad. And yeah, that's how Support Insured started. Now was a matter of, we've got the underwriter, let's go get the systems so that it can be as easy for people to apply as it is. And now when you go to the NASDF website and click on the support insured, it not only gives you a whole bunch of question and answers, but the applying for it is so easy. You just answer the questions. You cannot purchase more than what you're currently receiving from the courts. So if you're receiving $2,500 for your child support and alimony, you can't purchase $3,000 or $4,000 worth. I'm only going to pay you the 2,500. Thank you for
Right. So either party
receiving.
can purchase then?
Either party can purchase, but
Wow.
if you're not the payer and you're the payee, the person receiving, you have to know the information about the person paying. So
Right.
how long have they been employed? Do they have any illnesses, things like that? And I assume if you've been married to that person and had a relationship, you should know most of these questions, which are fairly simple. And then you go ahead and apply for it, pay for it with your credit card, and we give you a certificate of coverage right there on the spot. It renews annually. And what happens is if that person incurs one of the perils, we will go ahead and continue making those payments for up to a year.
All
So it's
right.
enough
So
time for the person to get back on their feet.
get
Whoever,
back on your exactly. To it's not going to, I mean, from the let's say from the dad perspective, the guy who is making payments, um, this is a huge source of disruption in the parenting schedule, the visitation schedule, the all of that sort of thing. You get laid off or your business goes under or some kind of illness that means that you can't work and can't pay.
right.
Uh, this is insurance against losing contact with your kids until you sort yourself out.
Not losing contact, not having to go to court as a deadbeat parent. It prevents some of that, not all of it. We do not cover for deadbeat parents. That's something that the state takes care of. But we try to make it so that you don't become that deadbeat parent or because things happen. So I was
Yeah.
talking to one attorney that said, well, most of my clients are high end. If that situation happens, we'd go back to court and say, well, we can't make the payments until we get back on our feet. And I said, well, that's great. But what about the person who needs the money? What are
Right.
they supposed to do? Wait for that person to get back on their feet? Or,
And
give them that leeway of making those payments while they're working on getting back on their feet.
absolutely. And I can't tell you how many um, people I've spoken to, dads, who had that sort of situation and go back to court, and the judge says, I don't care.
Right.
You have this responsibility. I spoke with a dad who was paying $36,000 a year in child support payments, who lost his job
Yeah.
and took a job where he was earning $35,000 a year. Like it was, he had zero income. Every cent that he was earning was, there
Right.
was nothing for his own rent, nothing for his own food or transportation. It's a kind of insanity. It's the judge's discretion to say,
Mhm.
okay, here's some leeway, or yeah, I don't care, figure it out.
Right.
So this would be an amazing boon. And I looked because I was curious. It's not that expensive to
No.
insure your child support payments. Like it's totally doable.
Yep. If you go to the website, hit support insured there, and you go to, there's a whole scenario of what the payments look like. It's based off of your age and the amount that you're receiving. So if you were getting 2,000 a month and you're say 40 years old, don't quote me on this, but the premium should be under $500 a year.
Yeah,
And it,
right? Like a year. So
right,
like 40, $50 a month
correct.
to
And it comes
insure
with a
$2,000 a month.
it comes with a membership to NASDF at the same time. So you're getting discounts for daycare services, free mental health care, career services, discounts on diapers, formula, school supplies, 24-hour nurse assistance. I mean, there's a ton of benefits that are under there,
Wow.
actual things that you need, especially under the mental health care.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think a lot of these children or these parents, when they get a divorce, they put them in front of a therapist to try to help them through the process. We're trying to get it from 3 free mental health care sessions to 8 free mental health care sessions, and we hope to have that within the next couple of months.
Oh, fantastic. Wow, what a boon this is.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me about your hopes for foster care advocacy, because this is a big part of what you want to be doing.
Yeah, there was just 2 advocacy programs we want to set up. The first one is for foster care reform, and it's basically about some states are doing it right. Not all states are doing it wrong. So we want to look to the states that are doing it right, find out what their programs look like and how we can initiate those programs into other states. We also want to go ahead and make sure that, from what I've seen from my perspective as a foster parent, is that my kid needed therapy, so they offered therapy. I had him go once a week. He came back about the third week and said, "Dad, I can't do this because every time I go, there's a different therapist."
Mm.
And I thought, wait a minute, that doesn't work. And when I spoke to the social worker, she said, "Well, we just can't seem to keep them." So I was fortunate enough to be able to get him into private care, but that needs to be predominant. I mean, those children need to be seeing those therapists. And I know that a lot of states have privatized the foster care system, and it's a usually for a for-profit type business. Well, there's only so much funds that can go around, and if you're trying to make a profit, you got to cut it somewhere. But we're talking about children here. The other part is to be able to advocate for children in general. So you get into a situation where states are trying to eliminate abortion pretty much altogether, but they're not talking about what's happening with these unwanted children or these children that these parents can't financially afford. Nobody's talking about it. I have yet to see one news network say, I understand you're eliminating abortion in your state, but what about the children? How does your foster care system look like? Are you able to take on these additional children? What are you doing for them? Nobody's having that conversation. We want to be those advocates that are having those conversations and holding those states accountable to make sure that those children are becoming better human beings because they have a better system in place.
Oh, this is so great. I and I have to say it's like totally naive on my part, but I had no idea that the like state foster care system could be a privatized thing.
Oh
That
yeah,
just sounds like a ticket to disaster for
exactly.
me.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't blame the social workers that are there, the caseworkers that are there. They're doing their best given the tools that they have, and most of them are overburdened with too many caseloads versus being able to have less children on your caseload and be able to focus on those kids.
Yeah.
So I know that even with my situation, I we in the he was in the system for 4 years, pretty much. So in those 4 years, I probably had 10 different social workers, caseworkers, because they would either quit, change, or something. And it just, there's no stability in the system. And that's what these kids need.
Yeah.
I can't say everybody's doing it, but a lot of states, it's a disaster.
Wow. Well, what a wonderful thing that you should have um, kind of found your place to do
Yeah.
this kind of work and to have this family experience for yourself and to have the bandwidth to take this on. I mean, this is just amazing. So I'll be definitely promoting this in my group, and obviously this will be the podcast, and we'll be on the podcast channel and on YouTube. But what else do you need people to know?
The second part of our advocacy is going to be geared towards the prevention of intergenerational poverty. So there's a a lot of times when somebody is collecting food stamps or support and they go out and they get a job, they suddenly make too much money and they get off of the food stamps, but it's not enough to support themselves and have their children in a daycare type arrangement. There are programs that are out there that have successfully been able to get people trained for different jobs that they can earn a higher income and they can get off of the food stamps and the assistance and be able to afford their children going into daycare. We want to be able to replicate those systems and expand upon them and get states to start initiating those as well. It goes in line with families and children being able to take care of your children, being able to have healthy families, which is pretty much the whole scenario of what we consider NASDF to be a part of.
So fantastic. And I hope that there's just a flood of people taking advantage of this organization and, that you get lots and lots of numbers for advocacy purposes. You seem to be somebody who's got your finger on the pulse of exactly where the bottleneck is, um, where you need to address a
Yeah.
bottleneck in the system to really let things flow.
And it's only $19 a month for your membership. All you have to do is go to nasdf.org and click on the membership button. You'll also see the tab for support insured. If you want to buy the insurance, you can do that, but you automatically get a membership to NASDF. You don't have to buy the insurance to get a membership.
So fantastic. Ron, thank you for doing this. And
Absolutely.
we'll be staying in touch for sure because like we have other stuff to talk about.
We do have other things to talk
You're
about.
you're liable to show up on my other podcast. But
My
this was
superpower,
great.
my superpower, which we won't discuss at the moment.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to be here.